Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, and today we are continuing Cirque du Freak by Darren Shan, Book 10, The Lake of Souls. I feel like I say this every week, but we are right at the end. We are rounding third base, as they say. And this is the first book, if we're again splitting it up into trilogies. This is the first book of the final trilogy. We've got book 10, 11, and 12. And it certainly feels like it. There was a lot of stuff. I feel like a little bit of foreshadowing here and there, as well as just some big reveals, sort of expanding the world a little bit. And yeah, crazy stuff. So let's talk about some of it. Obviously, we have the very, very, very end, which is pretty cool. I think there were some things here and there, especially as the book went on, in which we could have maybe guessed this. Like I said, little tidbits, little breadcrumbs. But by the end, Harkat uses the postcards that he got from the kitchen in the alternate world or whatever, and his theory, which makes a lot of sense, is that they were actually in the future the whole time. Now, it's tough because it's like, how does Mr. Tiny navigate the world? Like, are there, we sort of, at least I was comparing this to like the Marvel movies. The Marvel movies, they have like alternate realities, and I forget exactly what they called them. It's not like alternate timelines, universes, something. I don't know. It's gotten crazy and kind of hard to follow as the movies have gone on. But so I'm wondering if like that's kind of how Mr. Tiny does it, or because he did explain it a little bit, but I still didn't quite understand. Like, is it just the future? Like is there just one timeline? I mean, I guess he didn't really mention alternate stuff, so maybe it is just one timeline, and he was able to go into the future and get Kurda and all that. But uh, either way, he thinks they're in the future because we got postcards that are dated for 10, 20 years from now, as well as the Ba Shan spiders, which, if they exist, it can't be the past unless there's some weird meddling going on there. We got I didn't write down the name of the people, but those people that worshipped the big slug, those people are eerily similar to the Guardians of Blood. So it's like all these things kind of connect, and I think that's fun because, I mean, he sort of just introduced the idea of time travel to us in book 10 of 12. Um, but I think that, I mean, obviously it helps explain Hardcat, which we'll get to in a moment, but um, kind of crazy because now we look at that with a whole new context of like, whoa, wait, hold on. Is this what the future is going to be? Like, and then, I mean, first of all, just what it is, right? Like, the planet seems like there's not a lot of people, although I'm sure there's lots of places on this planet currently that we live in that we could roam around and not see humans at all. So, not the craziest thing to not see a ton of people every 20 feet, but it's like, I mean, dragons exist, so it's like, do dragons exist now and they're just like hidden somewhere? Like, what's going on there? I mean, even the monstrosity that was the grotesque, that's what they referred to it as. It's like, does that get like created at some point between now and then? Like, what's going on there? I mean, and although the postcards are from that date, we have no idea where they like they could have actually been 1,000 years in the future. Just those, some things in there were kept, unharmed because it was, they were guessing that that was some part of some sort of fallout shelter type thing. So just because the postcards are from, let's say, 30 years in the future, doesn't mean that they're only 30 years in the future. There could be 1,000, 5,000. Um, I mean, although I feel like maybe stuff would disintegrate at that point, but then probably Mr. Tiny is keeping that place for, I mean, most likely this instance in particular with their quest. So, you know, how, is he preserving it, and how far in the future are they? But still, even if we can't pinpoint that, which we can't, it's still fascinating to be like, oh, this is Earth. Like this is where we're not on some strange alien planet. Like, this is where we are. So that was really fun. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that. Also, what about the Lake of Souls? Like, does the Lake of Souls also exist now somewhere on Earth currently? Um, yeah, it's very, very fascinating. I wonder how much more sort of like time travel stuff they'll play with, or if that was it, if that was a one and done. Because we now move into our next point, which is Harkat. We find out Harkat was, I guess he still is technically Kurda. Kurda, if y'all don't remember, somehow after reading this book, he was the vampire, soon to be, right? He wasn't ever actually the vampire prince, right? Yeah, no, right? Because he got stopped by Darren and them during his coronation. Um, yeah, he was a vampire prince, betrayed them, killed Gavner, all that stuff, Ampanese. Um, that's crazy. But in hindsight, again, like with the way Mr. Tiny explained it, it makes complete sense. It's like, oh, we needed someone that cared about you enough to fight for you, to be loyal to you. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really think this changes anything. I think that I don't even think it's worth. I mean, I'm sure they'll tell people. I'm sure at the very least, if they see like Vancha again, be like, "Yo, this is Kurda." um, but like, I don't even really think that changes anything between them. Like, they had that small conversation at the end about like, "Oh, does this change? Now that you're Kurda, do you care about the war scars anymore? Are you gonna leave?" And then vice versa, where it's like, well, what about you? Like, are you mad that I betrayed you? Like, does that, it's like, that'd be dumb, that'd be pretty dumb for that to change everything between them because they've been through so much together. I mean, Darren and Harkat were together before they even met Kurda because Mr. Tiny gave Crepsley and Darren, the two little people, one of them being Harkat, on their way to Vampire Mount for the first time. So it's like, dog, I knew you before I knew Kurda. Why would this change anything? So I really like that. I like that there wasn't any weirdness. I mean, I'm sure there is a little bit, like just internally, probably be there for a few days, a few weeks or something, just to be like, oh, this is strange, huh? But I mean, for the most part, it's like, kind of like Harkat said, it's like we've been through way too much for this to just end, you know. But that was crazy. Again, the whole time travel thing, getting the soul out, making him Harkat. Um, it does kind of make you wonder too about like, I wonder who the other little people are. Most likely, they're not all going to be someone that Darren knows, or someone that he knew, or someone that's in his proximity or something. But um, it is interesting because he did see a lot of other faces in there as well. It's most likely not. It's honestly most likely not people that he's known that have died because you imagine most of them have gone on to paradise, like Crepsley and Ara and Gavner. Like Crepsley was confirmed by Tiny, or no, by Ivana. But it's like the other ones you imagine went to paradise. Kurda is the one where you're like, eh, you know. But good stuff there. Uh, what else do we have? There's a lot of stuff really scattered throughout this one. I guess we'll just do a lot more stuff in the future timeline, just a couple things here and there. I liked when they finally made the bombs out of the globes, the venom, and the teeth. I thought that was a fun moment just because, like, it makes a weapon towards the dragons and all that, which is fine. But I think that seeing all the pieces come together, like we've seen stories like this before where people go on an adventure and they have to collect things, and at the end all those things come together and they help them during their journey or during the final boss or whatever. It's very much like a video game almost, right, where as you go through the game you collect different skills or weapons, or um, I guess skills and weapons are mostly what you collect in like RPGs and stuff. But like, and then you get to a boss and you're like, oh, okay, now I can use all of these things. And so for them to get to that point where it's like, oh, everything makes sense, because as they're collecting, it's like, okay, the teeth, why do we need the teeth? Why do we need these weird globe things? I mean, the only thing, the venom made sense of like, it's explosive, it could be used as a weapon, I guess, but putting them all together, it's like, oh, okay. Now we're reaping the spoils from our hard work, from us almost dying, collecting all these things. Yeah, I just thought that was a fun moment of like, everything's coming together. What else do we have? Kind of touched on it before, but we had the Shan spiders. Them in the tunnel was fun. It was nice. Them seeing spiders again, because spiders are such an important aspect to Darren's life, right? Like all this started because of a spider, because of Madame Octa, and then for them to continuously pop up throughout the story, for them to even get here, and obviously we have the greater implications of them being in the future. That's why the Bashian spiders are there. But even for that to be a moment that rang true for him, and was like, oh, I know what to do. I can use my abilities, the abilities again that I have been honing ever since the first book. When I first started playing the flute and trying to play with Octa, it's like, oh, now I've gotten to the point where I don't need the flute anymore, and I'm confident enough that I can control enough of these spiders, even though there's possibly thousands here. I can control enough of them for us to get free, not only me, but my friends. I mean, Spitz is not, I wouldn't really call Spitz a friend, but him and Harkat can get out of here alive and continue on our journey, our quest. Um, you know, I a nice full circle moment. I'm not saying they won't see spiders anymore, but let's see that come back around. Mentioned it before again, but we have the grotesque thing, pretty crazy. Darren Shan, the author, you sometimes maybe forget about the like horror elements to this series, and Darren Shan does have other series that quite possibly we'll check out. The other one, which is arguably better than this one, but Cirque du Freak is kind of like the one that put him on the map, I feel. The next series he did, or I believe it's the next one, was called Demonata, and that's one that I very much enjoy, and we'll most likely get to that one at some point because I like that one just like I like this series. But he does have other series, and they're all very horror centric. And in the series, you kind of forget it's like, okay, it's vampires, but like whatever, right? But then you get to something like this. It's like, oh yeah, this is a staple of Darren Shan writing, of just like some weird, gross, just like what is this? what what am I reading and trying to picture in my head right now? So that is what the grotesque thing is. But very interesting too. Like, okay, these later on we are theorizing that these are somewhat the guardians of blood. So they are maybe worshiping them or have some sort of symbiotic relationship in some sense. Did they build this temple thing? Was it already there? We never know. I mean, maybe we go back. I don't remember. We could very well go back. There could be a time jump at some point. We got 2 books left. Crazy endings. We might have a time jump to the future that they were at. Maybe then that's how they'll revisit. Maybe this was some sort of foreshadowing, and maybe also somewhat of a red herring of like, oh, we'll never be back there again, luckily, and we do go back. I don't remember. But yeah, grotesque thing, crazy. It's got like the venom with the explosives. It is quite an abomination, to say the least. But again, that adding to the quest, I just mentioned about them taking all the pieces, putting them together. Like, them getting the pieces is fun because with this in particular, them approaching something, we already had them with the frog, and it's like, it's a big frog. The panther, that's just a normal panther, right? Them approaching this thing, and it's like, what am I even supposed to do here? What am I even looking at? you know, um, it's fun. It's good. It's good. I don't really know what else to say. It's just a weird thing, and it's just adding to the dread of the adrenaline, and like, what am I even looking at? What is Mr. Tiny doing with us? you know. What else do we have? And I guess the last thing in terms of this realm, and then after that, I have a few things that are very early on in the book that I think we should not forget. I think it's very easy to forget some of the earlier things because the majority of the book was this quest. But the last thing within the quest is somewhat of a theory I have. And again, just to really triple down on this, I have read this before. So this could be some of my subconscious peeking through, and I don't even realize that this is true. But the dragon dropped them in the very beginning when they first met the dragon, met, encountered. Um, Darren wanted the dragon to drop Harkat. He was like, drop Harkat, he's my friend, get him out. I don't want him to die, all that stuff. Dragon dropped him. Dragon then dropped Darren. And later, Harkat was like, how did you get the dragon to drop us? There's no reason. I mean, even me, like, I maybe could have got free because it only sort of got my robes, but why did the dragon drop you and fly away? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Now, one explanation is dragon didn't care. Dragon was like, maybe I thought dropping you would kill you. I just wanted you out of here. Another theory is Mr. Tiny was meddling somehow because Mr. Tiny already confirmed that he does meddle, and he has meddled multiple times in moments in which Darren was going to die, because for his own reasons in which he has not revealed to us, and I don't know if he ever actually fully reveals all of his plans to us. Probably not, because why would he do that? He has saved Darren on multiple occasions on which he would have died. Another theory that I had, I was thinking, well, Darren can talk to spiders. I'm not saying he can talk to all animals, but maybe he can talk to dragons for some reason. Maybe he has some sort of influence over them. He is special, clearly. Desmond Tiny is batting for him for some strange reason. Maybe he can talk to, because it was a strange thing, right? Like, even in the moment, like, it was clear that the dragon acknowledged him, or at least seemed to acknowledge Darren's thoughts, or his words, or whatever, and he dropped him. It's like, there really wasn't any explanation for that. So, it's something to keep on your mind. I could be completely wrong. It's probably wrong. We'll probably never see a dragon again, and there's only 2 books left. I don't know that there's a reason for us to see any other dragons, but maybe, Tiny can control them. Tiny, based on Harkat's dreams, back when he was having those, it was like, oh yeah, he's like a dragon rider or whatever. It's like, oh, maybe Darren can talk to dragons too. I don't know. Maybe that's what, maybe it is some sort of special trait, and that's why Tiny has an interest in him, because he's like, whoa, Darren's special in ways that I'm special. Any, anything could be true, honestly. And now I got a few things I want to mention that are at the very beginning of the book that I think is worth remembering. And they have nothing to do with the quest. But I think we shouldn't forget them. We don't want them to be drowned out by the quest. So a few things. One, Alice and Debbie went to Vampire Mountain. Their plan is to form an army, a human army, to combat the Vampets. So that way the vampires don't have to deal with Vampanies and Vampets. Vampires can have their own army of some sort, probably with some dumb name. So that each sort of level can attack themselves, right? The humans can fight the humans. Vampires can fight the vampires. Vampanies, whatever. Interesting, right? Like, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, in theory, it makes sense, right? Because that is a big thing, a big advantage that the Vampanies have right now, even if they don't fully agree with it. Like, you can tell that some of them, at least some of them, kind of wary, because they're like, it's not really how we do things, but, it's, so now, with them having Vampets that can use weapons like that, projectile weapons, as well as roam around during the day. If vampires also have an army like that way they can combat them directly, and also maybe protect some of the vampires and all that. So it makes sense on paper. Again, I don't know who it was, if it was Darren or Harkat, maybe both. Vancha, I don't know, but they were like, even if it makes sense, do you think the vampires are going to agree to it? Because there's lots of things that have made sense in the past that the vampires are too stuck in their own ways to, to kind of adopt it, right? Um, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens again. I think it makes complete sense. I think it's tough, for sure. Um, I'm actually very surprised at how many vampets the Vampanese have. It's like, how did you convince them? I mean, unless you just like scared them and was like, I'm a monster, I'm gonna kill you unless you come to my cause. It's like, oh, I guess, but we'll see what happens with that. Um, they have one last encounter with Steve. They used one in the woods before they knew anything. They used one when they first met Steve, and then they had another one with Crepsley and Steve. So one last one. This is hopeful, because I think there was a part of their crew that thought that it was up, that thought that, because they were with Steve for quite a bit in the city. So it's like, how many of our chances did we use? All of our chances. So the fact that it was Ivana that was like, y'all have one more. It's like, oh, thank God. you know. Um, Hopefully, Crepsley won't have died in vain, and we can redeem it just a little bit by killing Steve. Again, Crepsley did not want Darren to let revenge take him over, completely control everything in his life. But they have to kill Steve, not because he's Steve, but because he is the Vampanese Lord. So they have one more chance. Again, hopeful for sure. We got two more books. So, and the last thing is Truska finally got Darren to cry. I loved this moment. I loved this whole scene because the whole first section of this book was Darren just being awful, and you get it, right? We can't be mad at him necessarily because he lost Crepsley, who was basically a father to him. At this point, has he been a vampire longer than he wasn't a vampire? Because he was probably, what, like 12 or something, right? When he got turned? Has he been away for 12 years? If he hasn't, it's pretty close. It had to have been close to that at this point, right? Because, I mean, he was at Vampire Mountain for like 6 years or something. Something like that, right? Him just like spiraling further and further and further. Not even spiraling, just like closing in on himself. Shutting everything out. Even his friend, even Harkat, he was like getting snippy with, and it's like, oh. But for Truska to bring him in, give him a bath, give him a cut, give him some new clothes, and be like, hey, look into the mirror. He looks into his eyes. He sees his eyes are dead. There's nothing behind them. And for her to be like, yo, Crepsley would not have wanted this. You have to feel something. Maybe hate isn't the right thing, but even hate is worse than nothing, and I love that because I think she's so right. Like, obviously with that sentiment, it's like just feeling dead is the worst. That is least desirable. But even with the Crepsley stuff, it's like, dog, if Crepsley was alive and saw you like this, he would be rapping you on the ears. He'd be like, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? Pick yourself up, and like you are being insufferable right now. And so, I love that everything just crashed into him at that moment, and he was finally able to grieve, and he grieved for a lot in the next upcoming weeks and all that. But it's like, I love that she was able to do it because I think Harkat, and even Evra maybe were maybe a little too close to him. Especially Harkat, right? Where it's like Harkat couldn't have been the one. You wanted him to be the one because he was his best friend, but it's like he was too close to the situation. So you have Truska, who's outside of their lives for the most part, right? Except when they visit the Cirque, but she still knows enough about Darren. She knows enough about Krebsley, for her to be able to understand the situation and be able to hit Darren in just the right spot to be like, hey, you're being an idiot. you know, you know. So I thought that was really nice. That was one of my favorite parts of the whole book, and that was right at the beginning. For her to be able to knock him out of it and be like, you are dumb, and you have things to do and people to see. So yeah, love that. And that is it. That is it for this book. Next book we are going to be reading is book 11, which I believe is the Lord of Shadows, or Lord of the Shadows. Lord of the Shadow, which is a callback to a couple books ago, I believe. Right? A couple books ago, when Ivana made, Ivana helped ease Harkat's nightmares for a bit, and Darren went into them and saw the figure, and she was like, "That's the Lord of the Shadow," or something. And I think that, wasn't she like, you have to face the Lord of Shadow, or you could become the Lord of Shadow, or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but that is a callback to that. So maybe the Lord of Shadow is finally gonna appear or something. Like I said, it is book 11, so the second to last book. So I'm sure lots of big stuff is gonna happen. Predictions for next book. What do I think is gonna happen? So Lord of the Shadow, obviously, like I said, we're gonna learn more about him. He's probably gonna show his head, whatever that means. Lord, though, common word, Vampanese Lord. So maybe Steve is Lord Shadow? They both got Lord in their name? Could be. But what do we got though? Like I said, some smaller stuff. Alice and Debbie is like, I would like to hear about them to see how they made it. Hopefully they didn't die on their way to Vampire Mountain and to the princes. Hopefully they were able to convince the princes in these trying times. This is a good idea. Especially with, Vansha and Darren both liked the idea. Was Vansha still there by the time? I don't remember. But at the very least, Darren was, and Darren is a prince, so his words hold weight. So hopefully that will kind of help nudge him in the right direction. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they go from here, because it's like they've been told before, they don't necessarily need to pursue the war. They don't need to pursue Steve. Like, it will happen when it happens. It's destiny, right? So it's like, I wonder if they'll stay at the Cirque for a little longer, if they'll travel to Vampire Mountain. Maybe that's the next logical step. There really isn't. There really aren't a lot of locations, unless something pops up. The Cirque and the mountain are the only two big locations we have. So, any other big things? Like I said, Steve, I imagine if we don't see him at all next book, that'd be pretty crazy. Like I said, only 2 books left. Yeah. I would imagine, if I had to guess, I would say they're going back to Vampire Mountain. Where was Vancha? Where did Vancha go in this book? I don't remember. Where did Vancha go? He didn't go to Vampire Mountain. Crepsley. God, I don't remember. I don't know where else he would have. I mean, maybe he was going after. Well, no, because they departed, right? Yeah, yeah. Vancha didn't go to the Cirque with them. I don't think. Because I think Darren and Harkat were like, "Yo, we're going to Vampire Mountain, or we're going to the Cirque." So I think Vancha might have. Did Vancha go back to Vampire Mountain? Did he? I don't remember. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, my guess would be they go to Vampire Mountain because they want to give them an update on everything that's happened. They want to talk about Harkat, I'm sure. They probably want to meet up with Debbie and Alice and make sure they're okay. You know, their next steps, right? We have one more encounter left. What's going on? What are we doing? I think that's probably the next logical step. Vancha might have gone to Vampire Mountain to be like, yo, Crapsley's dead. I don't know though. But yeah, that is it. Like I said, Lord of the Shadow. Read that book. That's what we're doing next week. Gearing close, like I said, very exciting times because not only is this the end of a series, which is a very exciting part of a series to be, but it's also we're gonna start something new pretty soon. A couple more weeks. So yeah. Till next time, read Lord of the Shadow, and we'll see what Darren and Harkat have in store. Like I said, probably going to Vampire Mountain, but we'll see because this series is ending and they have to kill Steve.